Welcome. Thank you for attending the first Florida Film Works, sponsored by our good buddies, Dolphin Image Studios, and presented by the Organization of Independent Filmmakers, a local nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing the future of not just Central Florida, but Florida's film community. My name is Jason Gregory. I'm a local filmmaker, screenwriting lecturer in the English department at UCF, go Knights, and as well as a fellow alum of their amazing MFA film program. I'm honored to be your moderator today. What's that? Go Knights?
Sure.
Here we go, okay.
I know him, so it's saying hi.
Oh, okay.
He's like, here's my face. Yeah.
I'm honored to be our moderator today for our panel discussion this afternoon. Joining me are a panel of film and arts experts that will present ideas, theories, and facts on the future of film in Florida, more specifically here in Central Florida. Now, before I present our guest, I'd like to welcome to the stage Mr. Lenny LaRusso, founder and executive director of OIF, the Organization of Independent Filmmakers.
Thank you, Jason. And thank you all for coming out here on this beautiful sunny Sunday morning. I just want to keep this brief, so I'll start by thanking everyone that helped out with putting this together. I'd like to thank the staff and the management here at the Enzian Theater. Let's give them a hand. And shout out to Jason for being a gracious host this evening, definitely. And I'd like to shout out here to Chris and my partner here at SPIA. They're going to be helping out. Chris is going to be handing out the mic to the audience members that would like to ask questions from the panelists. And that's about it. I just want to say that our organization supports and nurtures the growth of creative culture here in Central Florida and beyond. And that without creativity, our society would not move forward. And that's why we love what we do. We also realize that in order to promote an environment where dreams can be turned into reality, we need to not just have the artists, but we need to sync those dreams and those goals together with business, with government, and with arts institutions. So that's hopefully what we're hoping to help do here with this program. So thank you all for coming.
Now, this afternoon, we are extremely fortunate to have joining us Mr. John Lux, Executive Director of Film Florida. Mr. Terry Olson, Director of Arts and Culture and self-described Chief Arts Instigator for Orange County. I love that. Ms. Brooke Hill, with the City of Orlando and Orlando Film Commission. Mr. Jordan Woods Robinson, actor, musician, acting coach, and founder of Book Frontage Acting Studios. Bring it all, bring it all, bring it all. We're all family here, come on. And last but not least, Miss Jennifer Gerakis, I love that last name. Actress, mentor, acting coach, and founder of Jen Gerakis Coaching. Please give our guests a warm welcome and a round of applause. All right, very quickly, a few housekeeping rules. So here's how it will go. We will answer 2 audience questions after each panelist, and time will be left at the end of the panel for other questions. We're at a very tight schedule, and we want to ensure that our panelists receive their times to drop jewels on everyone today. If everyone is in agreement, let the church say amen. 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 It's Sunday, so I felt that would be appropriate. All right. Now, first up, Mr. John Lux with Film Florida will give us some information about what's happening in the film industry. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks for having me. We'll start with a little bit of just kind of high level overview on Film Florida. Our organization is a statewide not-for-profit and created back in the late 1990s. We're a 501c6, so an actual not-for-profit. We're a membership-based organization. We have members from Pensacola to Key West and everywhere in between, including right here in this room today. We have a number of members here, which is always great to see. Our goal as an organization is to grow and strengthen the film, television production industry. It's kind of purposely vague because we do it in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of marketing involved, a lot of networking, professional development, as well as advocating on both the state and the local level to make sure people understand the importance of our industry, kind of the historical significance of our industry here in the state of Florida, and what we bring to the state in terms of high-wage jobs, diversifying our economy, those type of things. We have a podcast. We do a monthly professional development series online called Film Florida Fridays, where we discuss different topics that are relevant in the industry, and then have our panelists take questions directly from the guests, which we've been doing that a little bit more than a year. We do a fair amount of networking and professional development events. We travel both virtually and in person to different trade shows, film festivals, conferences, those type of things, all with the sole purpose of attracting more business to Florida, more opportunities, more jobs, more money for all of us that are here working in the industry. One thing that a lot of people don't necessarily know is the organization is entirely volunteer-based. I am the only employee, so when people call up and say, Film Florida should do this or Film Florida should do that, well, who is the they? There is no they or you, or it's all of us that are always working at it. So I always get a kick out of it when people in the industry are telling us what we should be doing, and I say, great, thank you for volunteering. It sounds like a great idea. Because that ultimately is the more engagement we get, the more involvement we have from the industry, the stronger we are as an organization, the stronger we are as an industry, the more we can do together, as opposed to literally thousands of people running around with their hair on fire individually. We try and, my job, I tell people, is to keep the train on the tracks. We have an executive board, we have a board of directors, but they all have full-time jobs, just like all of you. And so my job is to make sure our initiatives are moving forward on a daily basis. I wake up in the morning, go to bed at night thinking about what can Film Florida do to help. That ultimately is where I am. So in terms of where we are as a state of the industry here in Florida, it's good and bad. We have some really great things going for us in terms of obviously locations, weather, historical significance, the experience that we have as a state. The industry has been here in Florida for more than 100 years, and that's something that shouldn't be taken lightly. There's a lot of kind of Johnny-come-latelys in the industry in terms of state support. Florida has been around for more than 100 years doing this, starting up in Jacksonville at Norman Studios, which is literally a national landmark for the film industry. We have a number of local incentives, which obviously are very helpful throughout the state. The flip side of that, obviously, is that we don't have a statewide incentive, and that, as everybody probably knows, is one of the biggest things that holds us back from truly reaching our potential as an industry. But what I tell people from our efforts is that we can work as hard as we can to bring those incentives here and get the legislators on board with it, but ultimately it's out of our hands. We don't control what the decisions they make. And so my job is to put Film Florida and the organization and the industry in the best position for success in Tallahassee. And after that, I'm at peace because I can't force them to do one thing or another. Obviously, they haven't done what we had hoped over the last number of years. Whether it's the most frustrating thing or the most encouraging thing is we do actually have tremendous support up in Tallahassee from the legislature as a whole. Unfortunately, we don't have it from a small group that happens to be in power in the Florida House of Representatives. But God bless term limits. because a lot of those people that, you know, when we look back at where we were 4 years ago or 6 years ago, there were a lot more opponents in the legislature than there are now. And so hopefully we keep you know, pushing those people out. I have meetings all the time with legislators and candidates now. I'm even meeting with them before they even get voted in, to try and build those relationships. But I can't do it by myself, because the thing that legislators most notably take from those is personal stories. They love to hear the personal stories about this person or that person. I can't give those personal stories because they're not my stories. I can give kind of the high level view, but that's why we rely on those in our organization. And even if you're not a member, if you want to get involved in the legislative process, you know, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. What I try to convey to people, though, is don't use the lack of a state incentives as a crutch. Don't blame that as the reason why you didn't get this job or we lost that job. That we can't control that. What we can control is the marketing that we do, the you know, trying to convince people to come here, doing the best possible work we can when they do come here, giving them the best service we possibly can. We want people to come to Florida and say, you know, we don't want them to lead with, well, yeah, they don't have an incentive. We want them to lead with, we love coming to Florida because the crews are great, the reception is great, they want us here. And that's what we do control as an industry. Anything more, we don't control what goes on in Tallahassee, but we do control what we do in trying to get those projects here, and then what we do once they get here. My advice to everybody is continue to engage in the industry. Things like today are tremendous. Engage, whether you know, you want to get engaged in the legislative process, whether you want to get engaged within the industry. You know, people are always calling me saying, you know, how do I get a job? Where can I find more work? You know, we don't create original content at Film Florida. Our members do, and so I'm telling people you need to get engaged in the process. That's the best way to get, you know, more jobs, more opportunities. In terms of, you know, the facts of life, a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to get involved in some of this other stuff. You know, we're a business. You know, it's called show business, but truly we are an industry. Industry is based on business. You know, money pays bills. It's a business. You need to do what's best to get yourself business, and that's to get engaged and get involved. If you just sit back and wait for things, there's a lot of other people that are going to take advantage of it ahead of time. So I think that's about it. If anybody wants to get in touch with me at any time, you can go to our website. The phone number and the generic email that's on our website, which is filmflorida.org, goes directly to me. So that's the easiest way to get in touch. All of our social media pages are listed there. You can find the podcast as well. Hopefully everybody got some stickers as they came in. You know, put those on your laptops or your cases or your cars or whatever you want. And I think that's about it, unless we have any questions.
Yeah, that's great. And I would
encourage everyone to definitely go to the website and check out the YouTube series also for Film Florida, Film Florida Fridays. It's fantastic information, and you know, I just kind of binged it and learned a lot about what Film Florida does myself. All right, any questions out here? Do we have anyone who has any questions? In the back left here.
Can you talk about what's the background of the legislators about the incentives? What's their background?
What's like the pushback, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll start with the fact that what I call is the Florida arrogance. Some of them just look at it and say, we don't need it. You know, the economy's doing fine in Florida, unemployment's low, people want to move here, we have great weather, what do we need it for? What do we need to do anything new for? Obviously, it's a very short-sighted way to look at something. It's arrogant in thinking that, you know, we don't need to do anything else. I would say this to anybody, you always need to work to get better. And as a state, I'm always advocating for diversifying our economy. We may or may not be going into a recession. Nobody seems to agree on that, but our industry is essentially recession-proof. You know, there will always be content. So, you know, the arrogance is one thing. We certainly are branded as a liberal industry, and there are some that look at it and say, we don't want California liberals coming to our state. Obviously, that we can't control what certain voices say out in the industry. But what I try to explain to them is, we're talking about Floridians. We're not talking about people from Hollywood. We're not talking about people from Canada, Europe, South America. We're talking about jobs for Floridians. That's the goal of anything that we would put forth. The other thing is, they honestly look at the last election in Georgia and say, well, the film industry caused Georgia to vote blue, so we don't want that here. So there's an education process there. Those that are looking for excuses to not support our industry, there are a couple out there, there's no doubt about it, but they really are just excuses. If we get the opportunity to have dialogue and explain those, people say, oh, okay, I get it, that makes sense, I understand now. The question is whether or not we get that opportunity to have the dialogue. And if people's minds are made up and they're just dead set against helping our industry, there's not a whole lot we can do except wait for term limits on some of those people.
Can I add a perspective?
Please.
I would add a perspective that on the other side of term limits is the fact that you have people that are elected that don't know the complexities of other than their life, because they haven't been involved in the process of governing for a long time. So they may have one issue that everybody's strong and they get elected, but if they've not been involved in the film industry, then what do they care? So that's, I think, another side of term limits.
Which, I mean, that's part of the reason why I encourage so many people to meet with their legislators, because frankly, most legislators aren't any different than anybody sitting in this room, except they just decided to run for office. They may have one or two issues that they really care about. The rest of it, they're drinking from a fire hose. They don't know what to believe. And so the more our industry can engage with them and, again, show them, like, I'm a real person, I pay my mortgage, I put my kids in school, I'm just like you, here's an issue that's important to me. And when we lay out the facts, most of them actually respond to me and say, well, this is common sense. Yes, it is common sense. But they don't know that until we explain it to them. And that's why, you know, when a lot of people contact me or us as an organization and say, you should do this, or you have to do that, or how come you're not doing that? We're a volunteer organization. How come you aren't doing that, is my response to that. How many meetings have you had with legislators? And that's one of the things that I coach people that come to me. If you give me your home address, I look up what your districts are, I tell you who your candidates or legislators are, I tell you what we know about them, and I give you the contact information to reach out to them. I essentially am a cheat sheet. I just need people to actually send the emails, make the phone calls, which is what, maybe an hour time total? But they need to hear the stories so they understand what it is they're supporting or not supporting, and in most cases it would be support.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Any other questions out there? Way in the back.
Hi, my name is Matthew. I have some questions about freelance workers in the film industry, and I was just curious what obstacles there are and what advice that you would give to a freelance person starting out.
The biggest obstacle is supply and demand. There's a lot more supply of workers than there right now is demand for them, and so that obviously is challenging. And so a lot of times, unfortunately, it's who you know to get some jobs more than what you know. And it's only because if I had a crew and I hired these 10 people and they worked okay, next time I'm gonna probably work hire the same 10. But if you can, the more people you know, the more you're going to become in one of those inner circles. And I don't say inner circles in a negative term, it's just if you're comfortable with your crew, you're gonna continue using that crew. So the more you can get involved in events like this, the more you can get involved in paying attention to different Facebook groups. You gotta weed out a lot of those, like, hey, I have this 12-hour day, I'm not paying anything, but you might get an IMDb credit. Like, I'm not a huge fan of those. But people do post a lot of jobs in the industry Facebook groups, and if people are paying attention, they may, again, you may get a little less money in a job or two, but you're going to meet 2 or 3 more people that maybe the next time they're going to do it. So you have to get involved, and you have to be you got to be a lot more assertive now than you probably were 10 years ago.
Makes sense. I have just one more question. So when approaching a business, what strategy would you use to kind of showcase your talents and get them to want to hire you to do commercials and photos and stuff like that?
I mean, the first thing is they have to have a need. And if they don't have that need, or if they don't know the need, then you need to show them the need. And then again, it's just building a relationship. It's really no different than just about anything else in life. It's been 6 years since I worked for a private company. But back then, if people would come to me and shove something in my face, my first reaction was, no thanks. But if there was a relationship being built, and then eventually it led into me understanding that we had, as a company, had a need and somebody could help solve it, it's a lot easier to hire those type of people. That's a challenge because, I don't know how successful you're going to be cold calling or cold emailing 50 companies in the Central Florida area saying, I do production for a living, please hire me. I'm not sure how successful that will be. It's more about building the relationships within those organizations more so.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to add to that, one thing I heard from Issa Rae, she was the creator of Insecure, the HBO series. She mentioned find your tribe. So find your tribe, grow with that tribe, and also, connect with organizations such as the Organization of Independent Filmmakers, and help. Create a portfolio for yourself. Your portfolio is going to make noise for you and, make you in demand. With that said, let's hear from Mr. Terry Olson. Terry?
Good morning. Glad to be here. I work for Orange County Government, the Office of Arts and Cultural Affairs. My background is in theater, music and dance, and visual arts. And I was saying to Jason, well, my main lane isn't necessarily in film, but then I realized we are providing funding to 4 film festivals. So I guess we are involved in the film industry, and certainly the film industry is about the visual, about the movement, about the theatrical, about music. So it's all of those. I was hired 20 years ago to form this Office of Arts and Cultural Affairs and given a tool of what is now 2% of the tourist development tax, the money that tourists spend on a hotel room, and that is a huge chunk of money, and it continues to grow, which is nice about having this formula. So we invest over $5 million this year in arts and cultural affairs, and that money is regulated by the state. It can't be spent on just anything. Basically, it's designed to help promote bringing people to stay in hotels to regenerate the money. So you've got it next year. So a hurdle that has to be met on applying for our cultural tourism funding is that you are marketing outside of the area to bring people here. Doesn't mean that's the only criteria we have. We also are looking for innovation and creativity and your outreach and your ability to do what you say you're going to do. But the cultural tourism funding application is due each July for the following year, some project. So the Florida Film Festival is one festival that we have funded since the very first year of our funding. And certainly you're in their home right here, you can find out more about that festival. And they bring not only filmmakers in, but people come here from outside the area for that film festival. More recently, a couple of smaller film festivals, the Orlando Urban Film Festival, which you can talk to Jason here, who is a principal about that, and the Orlando International Film Festival, which is a part of Lions Club and has a lot of focus to helping kids in life skills through teaching film, but it is a film festival as well. And then in another way we're funding, we do fund some from the general fund, The general fund is the money that the county gets from sales tax and real estate taxes. It can be spent however the county wants to spend that money. And we do have a little line item for Fusion Fest, which is a festival that celebrates our awesome diversity here in Central Florida. You know, we're a very diverse community. A recent study said that by the year 2030, we may be the most diverse city in the world. So Fusion Fest not only celebrates everybody's heritage, and everybody has a heritage, and it's whatever you say it is. If you say you come from a long line of green-haired people, great, you've got a green-haired people heritage. We all have something that brings us to this point, but now here we are in this geographic area called Central Florida. So how can we be better Central Floridians together by learning from each other? And studies have shown that when people of different cultures work closely together, they're more innovative and they're more influential. So we feel that we can be the most innovative and creative place in the world. We've got 75 million visitors coming from every part of the world here. And so we're this crossroads where we can show the world some things, especially after Pulse. We showed the world that we can respond to hate with love. And I think we can show the world that people of different lifestyles, different ethnicities, different heritages can work together closely on a basis more of love and respect than fear and hate. So that's all kind of background to Fusion Fest, which is a project of my office that is not only a big festival Thanksgiving weekend, which has 22 elements, and one of those is film. Our film program is called Migration Films, and each August, the last weekend of August, we pair 1 to 2 dozen filmmakers with 1 to 2 dozen Central Floridians of different heritages, and give them 5 days to make a 5-minute film about that person. We premiere them in partnership with the Global Peace Film Festival. There's a 5th one, we fund them as well. This year was at the CMX downtown, formerly Cobb Theaters, and then they're shown at Fusion Fest. And then throughout the year, the third Tuesday of each month, we do a virtual watch party where we watch 1 or 2 of those films, and then through a Zoom kind of situation, have interviews with the filmmaker and the subject, and maybe a subject matter expert. If it's Hispanic Heritage Month, maybe we'll have the head of the Hispanic Chamber with, and just have a conversation. So in that way, we're involved with film. I wanted to comment about the legislators. We take a bus to Tallahassee every year. I think the film, do you guys do that too? Film?
It's a smaller group, but yeah.
So you're welcome to go with us March 21st up to Tallahassee. Come back on the 22nd. We have a bus company that donates the bus, which is got an artist rendering about the arts. Arts is essential, is what our last year's bus said. We stay overnight, and in groups go to talk to the legislators. And the first time you do that, it's like, anything to say. Well, we've got it all planned out. You're in a group. You just need to be you and show those elected officials that you're one of their constituents. Now, unfortunately, most of the elected officials from Orange County are not of the major party, and so they don't really have any power. But it's still important to go to talk to them. And there are some of the power people that we get to talk to as well, and we try to. But if the power people are from a different district, they don't really care as much. Some of the realities of that. And I do want to say that my office's mission is to elevate Central Florida's arts and culture to that befitting a diverse, world-class community. And so I mentioned Fusion Fest, and it's a celebration of diversity. It's the festival, and it's also programs throughout the year. And to the comments about the crew, and of course you like to work with people you know and trust, but there's big segment of our community. We are, I think now, if not now, very soon, majority minority county. So there's more non-white people than white people. So it would be really good to have some people of color on your crew, in your story, because that's a huge market. So I would encourage you to step out of your knowledge zone, your comfort zone of just the people you know, who probably are pretty much like you, and find some more. And one resource I would give you is the Central Florida Education Advocacy Black Book, which has a directory of people of color with lots of different skills. And I have used that source and been very satisfied. So I think that's what I have to say today.
Yeah, that's great information, Terry. I will tell you that when I first got involved in the film community, everything I asked, I would go to someone and they would say, Terry Olson, call Terry Olson. All roads lead to Terry Olson for whatever you need. Are there any questions out here for Terry? Way in the back here.
Hi. So there's kind of a weird dichotomy where the state of Florida doesn't really give, or it feels like they don't really give film credits to the big productions that come down here, so crew gets sort of left in I'll do free stuff to build my reel, or I need to go somewhere else. I know Louisiana is having this discussion about New Orleans being the Hollywood of the South, and in order to incentivize big companies to come down, they give credits. I know that you had started that conversation earlier, but to tie that into, on the same side, Orange County giving money for film festivals to try to make sure that these diverse groups are being heard. For those of us that are somewhere in between, meaning we're crew, we're new filmmakers, maybe out of school, and we're trying to find funding or a way to put together any type of money, even to pay someone just for lunch to shoot anything, what do those opportunities look like for those of us who are neither a big production company waiting for them to come into town, or essentially not a nonprofit organization looking for funding? That's sort of, I know that's an open-ended question, but it's kind of my thought.
I've got some answer. One is United Arts of Central Florida. They haven't for many years, but starting in a couple months, they're going to have an individual artist grants. I think it's $5,000. So as an artist of whatever kind of artistry you have, you can apply. Now, obviously, they're, I don't know if it's obvious. I think there'll be more people applying than they'll have grants to give, but that would be a source for you. If you are not a nonprofit organization, you can also partner with a nonprofit organization for other grants from United Arts. They have diversity grants, they have emerging arts groups grants, and then there's project grants. So those are a few things that I would suggest.
Sure, thank you.
And John, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah.
Mike.
Our organization does grants as well. If you go to our website, which is filmflorida.org, under the resources tab now, they max out at $2,000, which to some people they kind of like, oh, that's nothing. And other people say, oh my God, that would make or break anything. But there are a couple of different grants that you can apply for on our website that we give. One of them is actually called Emerging Filmmakers Fund, because it is for emerging filmmakers.
That $2,000 will work, man, especially for craft services. That's great. Any other questions?
I'm just going to add on to that. My name is Laura. My partner John is down here in front. We sponsor a grant through the Love Your Shorts Film Festival, as well as Love Your Shorts also has a grant that they do. It's only $500, so it's not a ton. But if you want to feed your crew, that would definitely help. So you can find us at the end, and we'll give you all the information.
Thank you. Big fan of Love Your Shorts. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, and next we have up Miss Brooke Hill from the City of Orlando and Orlando Film Commission.
I have a PowerPoint, but I am the only one, so I'm debating whether or not to use it.
Go for it.
You're more professional. All right. So I am with the Orlando Film Commission, is like what he said. Something else a little bit about me is I am also a filmmaker. So that gives me a really cool perspective as I'm working on this side for you all. I also understand what you guys are going through, the grants, the finding the people. And before I continue going into that, I want to just say thank you so much for having me here. And I want to say that I'm so honored to be on this panel, and especially with John Lux here, because I know, crazy. I met him a while ago and our paths crossed. He kept going, I went somewhere else, and then I came back. So it's been really cool, and it's been a pleasure getting to meet all of you guys. So anyway, continuing on. So what the Orlando Film Commission's mission is like many of these men and women up here, is to persistently attract and retain and grow jobs for the Metro Orlando area. That is our main goal, is to bring the jobs here, to give Floridians those jobs, to give the crew members, the cast members, everyone who's working tirelessly to eat, to make art, to live, to experience everything that's going on here, opportunity to. What's really cool about it is we're a leading destination for film, television, and commercial production. There are a lot of commercials that come down here to Central Florida to film, mostly because we have a ton of really cool locations. We have the historical locations that John was talking about. We have sound stages. We have Universal Studios. We have Disney. We have incredible different homes that don't look like quote-unquote Florida, but then we do have some where it's the stereotypical palm trees. We have lakes. We have springs. We have fields. We have rural. It's pretty cool to live here, to be honest. One place that's really cool, and I don't think my little video is going to play, and that is totally fine, is View Studios that just opened up in Orlando, and that is a really, really cool place. I'm sure that you all have heard of The Mandalorian, so you know that LED screen that they use to create the beautiful scapes, so the landscapes and everything in those places. Well, View Studios does that. They have the LED screen in the back, they have it on the floor, they have it on the ceiling, they have psych walls, they have everything, and it is so, so, so cool that we have it here in our neck of the woods, because they have it in Tampa, they have it in Nashville, so we're super excited to have that here now. Like also John was saying, because we work close together, we have year-round filming capabilities. It doesn't snow here. So you can film whenever you want, except for during a hurricane. We also have highly skilled crew, local crew, and that is due to a long film industry history here, and also all of the schools that are here, building up new, young, or older filmmakers that are learning the new technologies, learning the new techniques, and going out into the workforce. And we do have supportive local communities that I've actually been in communication with. What I do is I'm basically a liaison between filmmakers and the cities and counties in which those productions want to film at, especially the public locations. And you'd be surprised, but there's some counties and cities that are actually super excited to have film here. They want to work with us. Just more recently, Longwood, they bent over backwards to get a very, very small production to be able to film on one of their roads. And it's such a pleasure to work with them, to be honest. So I did kind of go over what I do, but we're a specialized office under the authority of a government entity and administrative office with the purpose of promoting the region through development of film, video, and multimedia production. I have a couple of resources there if you want to continue to look further into that. And something that I do for you guys is promote production in Central Florida, and I'm a one-stop shop permitting place. So if you're wanting to find a location, and the preliminary locations, if you're trying to find a location in Central Florida and you need the permission to film there, I am there to help you with that. Because a lot of the time, especially before I came into this position, I'm a filmmaker. I didn't know the rules, I might have stolen a couple shots in the back. It's fine. but I'm here to help you out so that we can figure it out together, so that you can get it done correctly. So the most important one is, when don't you need a permit? When you're on private property, a lot of the time, when you're within 4 walls and you're filming inside, a lot of the time you won't need a permit. If you're doing news, or if you're doing something with 3 or less people, that's in light of the tourists. If you want to take a picture, you don't need a permit. If you want to take a video, you don't need a permit. Or if you're in a production studio, or a soundstage like Universal or Disney or View. When you do need a permit is when anything is going to be interacting with the city, county, even if you are filming on a private property, if you're parking on the streets, if you're parking or doing anything that might disrupt anything, if you're using any sort of city or county, like state troopers, off-duty police officers, fire, EMT, anything like that, if you have stunts, pyrotechnics, props, weapons, anything like that, you will definitely need one. And the fun thing is that you don't have to remember all of that, but I do. So I'm here to help you if you want to reach out to me. There's a lot of words on here. So something that's really awesome about Central Florida is that there are a lot of places, even if you do need a permit, they won't charge you a lot of money, if anything at all, unless you're getting a service, like I said, off-duty officers or fire rescue. There are a couple places, but for students, a lot of the times they will waive out those fees, which is very, very cool. It is a lot cheaper to film here in Central Florida and in Orlando than it is to film in a lot of other places. And yeah, so again, reach out to me if you have those questions. Another fun thing, and a lot of words, is insurance. That's something that we also deal with. Every permit needs to have a certificate of insurance. Yes, you're nodding. Every permit needs a certificate of insurance. And I also help with that. I help educate, I help let you know that the cities and counties need to be the certificate holders as well as additionally insured for those permits, just to keep everybody safe, everybody covered, and just in case the worst case scenario, something happens. God forbid anything happened. There are a few procedures, and I'm giving you a lot of information because I want to inform you and be just educational, because it is a really cool space and it's something that potentially you might come in contact with, and having this background might be helpful for you. Every county, every city, no matter what, their minimum days of being able to turn a permit is about 5 business days. I have done it in a day, but please don't do that to me. I've done it, but I understand what happens. Everybody's schedules, and you're trying to do it a lot of time if you're doing something that you're doing it only for IMDb credit, and you have another job, and this job isn't paying you. Everything kind of goes down to the wire. But typically, Central Florida likes 5 business days. We process your permit, and we are your point of contact for anything like that, just in case anything happens. And here's my contact information for you. There's my direct email and the mobile work phone of mine, and I would be more than happy to help you out with anything that you might need. There you go. The end.
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you. Such great information. And I will tell you that as a former student, and was teaching a lot of film students, the Orlando Film Commission and Brooke are a great resource. You definitely want to get in touch with them, pre-production, to get any and everything that you need, and figure out what the rules are, because the way one city may handle something is completely different from a way another city may handle something. Sanford may be completely different from Longwood.
Yes, actually it is.
Yes. So you need to know, you need to understand the rules, and who's in that market. Questions for Brooke? Yes.
So my name is Greg Hussein. So how far does your jurisdiction around Central Florida end?
Like,
Yeah.
is Citra part of that as well too? Do you have contacts?
We have all of Orange County, Lake County, Seminole County, and Osceola County.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Good, good. Right here in the front. Chris is getting his steps in today.
Yeah. Have you ever had to work on getting permits for animals?
I have not. I'm quite new. This is my first year being in the film commission. But just because I haven't doesn't mean that I can't find somebody who would help me with that. So if you did, yes, I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Do you work with a lot of animals?
No, I just have an idea for a film and it might involve a gator, so.
That's exciting.
Gotcha. Interesting. All right, we'll take this last question right here in the back, and then we'll move on.
Hi, my name is Shanita Brown. As far as getting a permit, where would parks fall?
Parks, like
filming at a park.
Oh yeah, it depends, which is fun. It depends which park. Sometimes they're county owned, sometimes they're city owned, and sometimes 5 different jurisdictions own them. So it depends where exactly within the park, which park it is, and then I can help you obviously with that. There isn't a blanket permit. It's like I want to park in all the parks in Orange County, for example. No, but we can do like specific locations that you want to do, and then we would figure that out.
So we would contact you first.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep, get all that done in pre-production. Make sure you reach out to Brooke, so not afterwards, and you say, "Hey, I didn't know about that." Get with her, make her part of your team as soon as possible. All right, and with that said, let's move on to Mr. Jordan Woods Robinson.
Hey y'all. My microphone stand is a little dinky, so I'm going to get it closer to me. Hi, good morning. My name is Jordan. I'm an actor. I'm more recently a coach and owner and head honcho at Book from Tape Acting Studios. And it's been interesting jumping into this conversation because Jen and I were talking before this, and we're like, we're the acting teachers, and we're like, what are we going to offer? But I've got lots to offer, especially going off of what the conversation before me has been. So part of this is going to be, can I just see show of hands? Who is an actor? Like, think primarily, like 51% or more, like why you're here today, actor. Okay, cool. Okay, great. Look at this. I love this. Okay. How about director? 51% or more. Okay. And people, I'm going to lump several other folks together, I'm sorry, but like teacher, educator, either private or at an organization like Full Sail, UCF, something like that, where you're trained with, okay, great, okay, the next generation of filmmakers. So part of what I'm going to say is going to be for the actors, and part of what I'm going to say is going to be the Lorax on the actors' behalf, talking to the filmmakers in the room. Here's the bridge. Let's see if it gets burned. No, I don't think there won't be any burned bridges. Okay, so a couple things. As actors, I think one of the reasons why I'm here today is to talk about, how can you I think the official prompt for me was like, how do you start or grow your acting career? Great. You could ask 10 different people up here and we'd all have 10 different answers for you. But I'm going to go through a list in no particular order. One of the first things is, and this is going to come back to the filmmakers here in a minute and the educators who are training those future filmmakers, is making sure that you are immersing yourself in a safe space. And what that means is going where you're inspired, working on stuff that you're inspired by. Now, I'm also going to say I'm going to contradict myself, and I'm going to say yes to everything, especially in the beginning of your acting careers, but with a huge asterisk that's looming over it, as John mentioned, with certain Facebook groups and stuff like that, right? You always trust your gut, always make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, because if you have any red flags in the initial stages of the casting process, imagine how those are going to expand once you get further into the process. So It's not worth it. Take it all with a grain of salt. But go where there's a safe space. If you're working with a teacher where you don't feel like you're being nurtured in the right way. If you're and there's a difference between tough love and being challenged. If you were working with a personal trainer and you felt like at the end of your session you were at a point of actually hurting yourself physically, that's no longer tough love. That personal trainer pushed you past the point of working in a risk zone, which is where we want to live as actors. We want to. Somebody said it, but one of our goals as filmmakers is to hold a mirror up to society, and that challenges us to tell stories that are uncomfortable, that are heightened, that are taboo, and it is a group effort in order to make that happen. And if you find yourself training or working in environments where it's going past that risk zone and going into a danger zone, then that's time for you to say, okay, good. In order to not burn myself out, I'm going to make sure that I hold myself accountable, and I say, okay, good. I'm gonna seek other opportunities after this. I know I'm going off on a tangent. So let's get back to work in a safe space, and that might be finding those sets, finding those tribes that work for you. It comes down to classes. It comes down to trusting your gut. And actually, this is the thing I meant to lead with. Everything I'm going to say, every single iota of everything that I say is an opinion, and it's my opinion. And I'm not trying to screw you over. No one up here is trying to screw you over, but there will be opinions in your life when anything that one of us might say, we're trying to help, but it might not be the right thing for you. So continue trusting your gut, okay? So safe space, and that might be in a community college, which Valencia Community College has an incredible, anybody here from Valencia? Your film program is incredible, incredible. Go work at Valencia, go take some classes with them, right? Now let's, sorry, let me just pull up my notes. I do this. Jen and I were talking, we're either going to talk for like 4 minutes or 47 minutes, and we don't know, there's no 10-minute thing here for us. One idea as artists as well is, I went to a conservatory program, I went to NYU, where you're just immersed in that all day, 7 days a week. And if you can't attend a conservatory program for socioeconomic reasons or for anything else, it's just not that right time of your life, build your own conservatory program. Work with different facets of the industry. Take dance, do vocal work, work on a crew, learn some stuff from behind the scenes. I can't tell you how much I've never taken a film class. I'm trained exclusively in theater, but just being I've been thrown into the deep end, and I've learned film acting by being on film sets. And you know how incredible that is when you're immersed in that community, and when you get to learn from being thrown out of the frying pan and into the fire. Like you gotta catch up fast, And so by immersing yourself in that before. Okay, so now we're getting into one of the main things you can do as an actor is to engage in the student films. Work with the independent filmmakers. Get out there, get on set. Stop thinking that that's below you, because it's not. Here's just to put this into perspective. So if you're on Actors Access and you're doing some self-submits, the pecking order of this goes. You submit to somebody, and then they show it to somebody else, and then that somebody else says to the casting director, "Yeah, we like them," and then they send you an audition, and then it's just constantly back and forth. A lot of the casting directors aren't going to look at actors who just have self-taped clips. If you're in a self-taping setup, or you got a nice blank wall behind you, if you start to audition for projects like Stranger Things or like a Netflix show or something that's up in Atlanta, those casting directors, Fincannon and Associates, Feldstein Paris, are not necessarily going to look at your self-taped clips, but they are going to look at your footage that you got from student films and from indie projects. And you know who is going to look at those self-taped clips? The directors of the student films and the indie projects. So it might seem like a long path, but start by working on your craft. Get with a coach, get with some people who can really support you, and how you vibe, help you figure out what your tribe is, and then you get to work with some folks. You get to get on set. And y'all, I'll tell you, and this, I'm about to get over to the filmmakers here in a second, but quite honestly, if you're working on a student film as an actor, your chances of actually using that footage are 50-50, if not less. Because as an actor, one thing we have to consider is that if anything is not shining us in the most positive light, we're not going to be able to use that footage. If the sound is off, if the lighting is heightened in some obscure way, if the writing or the editing doesn't shine full 100% positivity on us, it's actually not going to serve us in the world of showing casting directors what we can do. So we know that, though. We know that, and we're ready to take that risk and jump in and say, I'm going to learn from, even if I'm on a set where I'm not getting footage, I am learning so much from being on this set. And it's wonderful, and we want to be there, okay? So I don't know if I actually said anything. Actors, work in a safe space. Say yes. Oh, Jen's going to follow this up and actually make sense of this in a second. Thank you, Jen.
She's going to translate.
She's going to thank you, yeah. Say yes to everything, knowing that you're going to get a learning experience out of this, no matter what. Either you're going to get footage and work with the next M. Night Shyamalan, and in 5 years, that director's going to call you back and say, hey, Jordan, I'm producing my first feature film and I need you, right? That might happen. On the flip side, let's talk to the filmmakers here just for a second. Just for a second. And this is I have to acknowledge that the film industry is changing. Florida is, and I say this with incredible respect for the, again, I'm humbled by being up here with this panel. The Florida is becoming the bastard stepchild of Georgia very quickly. Yeah, very quickly. And as an actor, I feel that every single day that I could move to Atlanta, or I could move to LA, or I could move to New York for a week, and my zip code would give me more clout than the 15 years of film and TV work that I've done while living in Central Florida. And that is what we're looking to change. That is what we are fighting for, and that is what is at stake here. That so many times during the pandemic, so many people moved from LA and New York when they were in their downtime. I'm talking about actors. So many actors moved when they were not making any money and paying exorbitant rental prices. They moved to Atlanta so that when things open back up, they're ready to go. And Atlanta is truly becoming a local market now. They don't have to look outside for actors, especially for the co-stars, especially for the small guest stars that we have opportunities to book from here. 10 years ago, you had the opportunity of being seen. Now it's less likely. So talking to the filmmakers, as I mentioned, we are tasked with mirroring those stories in life. The harder, the more taboo, the more heightened stories. And I want to encourage you as you get into this to, like I said, the actors want to be on your set. I want to encourage you to be as transparent as possible with the casting process and with what we can expect on set. And this is, I'm gonna say two terms right now that 10 years ago would not have really been on the table for discussion. I'm gonna say intimacy coordinator. I'm gonna say stunt coordinator. Stunt coordinator's been around for a long time, right? Sure. And I'll tell you that I worked with, I did 16 episodes on Walking Dead. I worked with Monty Crosby, who was one of the stunt coordinators on The Crow, when Jason Lee was shot and killed on set by a misfired gun. Okay, so to believe it that Monty Crosby takes his weapons training on set very seriously. But that's an armorer. Okay, so three terms that might be more prevalent on a SAG-AFTRA fully funded project are not as likely to appear on a student film or an independent project. But I guarantee you, there are people out there who are going to be hungry to be able to practice those roles on set, and that is going to make your acting community even more hungry to be on your set. Intimacy coordinator, stunt coordinator, and I can tell you stories. John said before that he wants personal stories to be able to share with legislature, and I'll tell you that there are plenty of other personal stories that ripple throughout the local community of the times when things were not structured that way on set. 2 quick stories. Okay, Chris is like, I'm flashing the flashlight at you, man. Your time's up. Here we go. We're on minute 12 of 44. Here we go. I was working with a young actress who was working on a short film about anti-bullying. And y'all, another thing I'm going to say is take a long, hard look at if you're creating a short film, if it's art or if it's anti-something propaganda, because we know it as soon as we read the script, and that starts to affect us too. Find a way to bring that art back into it. If you're slapping people across the face with stuff, whatever, that's an opinion. Sorry, shut up.
Don't make it preach.
A young actress is working on an anti-bullying set. No stunt coordinator. The director tells them during the fight sequences, just make it look real. A girl went to the ER with bruised ribs because she fell on the concrete. A friend of mine was recently on an independent set, and they handed out fake guns. And they said, don't worry, they're fake. Some of them were fake, some of them are rubber. Some of them were pellet guns with no ammunition. And here's the thing, I'm going to go back to the Monty Crosby just for a second. When you're on a Walking Dead set, and many other sets, and we can look back at the Alec Baldwin, unfortunately, that's the name that's attached with it, but we can look back on some of the events that have happened on professional sets. When you're working with Monty Crosby, anytime, any weapon, anything that could be construed as a weapon changes hands, the actor has an opportunity to go over it with that person, and that person leads them through this saying, because on a fully funded, now this, I realize that this is pipe dream, right? But on a fully funded set, you might have 3 different versions of the same weapon. You might have a gun that has a firing mechanism. You might have a gun that has no firing mechanism, and you might have a rubber gun. They all look identical, so they can be swapped out without sacrificing continuity. But there are 3 different versions. Whenever any weapon, knife, bat, gun, sword, anything changes hands, there is that time for the actor to stand there with the person who handed it to them and say, okay, cool, yep, I see, okay, yep, chamber's empty, everything's good, I see that this doesn't have a firing mechanism, got it, we're good to go. Because the moment that I have a gun and I hand it over to somebody else and I get that gun back, it could have inadvertently been, what if it was placed next to another one of my guns? What if I pick something up? What if this has a blank in it now and I didn't realize it? And the other person doesn't even realize it. But taking that time, and this is where by challenging ourselves from talking about pre-production, and this is another thing that I'm on your side, and I tell actors, we are the final cogs in these machines. We know it. I'm not trying to be egotistical up here. I'm trying to say that we understand that there is so much that goes into pre-production that we're not even aware of. We have no idea. And we show up and we've got the egos and we're like, it's all about me. I'm trying to help humble those actors as well and say, y'all, find a way to work with the tribe, please. Get in there, work with them. But if you can find a way to work with us as well and saying, we've got your back. We're going to have an armorer on set. We're going to have an intimacy coordinator for stories, right? And we just never know where a person's trauma may lie and how that may be brought out by this important story that you are looking to tell. So, my gosh, I'm going way too far into it's massively important. So if you can meet us there, then we will, when we know what those boundaries are, when we know the stories that we're telling, when we know how we can best serve your vision, and we feel supported in doing that, we will dive 100% into that risk zone and go as far as you need us to, and the art will thrive because of that. So I think that's where I want to wrap it up.
Yeah, and didn't Jordan start off saying he didn't know what he was going to talk about? Very good. Great information. Thank you, Jordan. And he mentioned the intimacy coordinators and that they are extremely important, especially nowadays. You can actually get more information about intimacy coordinators if you go to Film Florida. He did a interview with an intimacy coordinator there, and you can get more info. And talking about the student films, please get involved in those student films to start building your portfolio because Central Florida is like training ground, not only for filmmakers, but also actors. And, you know, I've seen actors go from student films to national commercials, and then they're doing stuff in LA. So use this as your training. 2 quick questions out here. Gentlemen right here in the front, and then we're going to go with, we got 3 in the back. We'll try and get to you.
So I have a quick question for Jordan and John. My name is Michael Jazzy of Dunedin, and I'm a local actor and filmmaker there, but I have an agency in Atlanta, Jordan, and I'm wondering if a local address to Atlanta would be better than my address here, even though I don't live there.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, if a local address will serve you. Here's the thing: 2 things. That local address is usually for the incentive paperwork, the other stuff. Like if you have a cousin of a distant partner, whatever, you know, like as long as you have an address, that will usually serve you as a local actor. Just knowing that you'll have to put yourself up and all that other stuff. The main thing is these casting directors are paying attention. They do know if you're truly local.
Right.
And that's, so like an address you can get in no time and submit that, and that's going to appease everyone. But then when you fill out your W-2, you're still going to put your Orlando address. That's still where you're going to get your check. Like it's all going to work itself out. But if you were, the flip side of that is, if you want to be a local hire, and if you find that you're not getting submitted for the smaller co-stars and the recurring and the small supporting stuff from down here, even though you have an Atlanta agent, one thing to consider is where is that threshold where you say, okay, if I want to book those roles, I maybe actually do need to move to Atlanta. I'm not saying that to poo-poo Florida, but it's a personal journey for sure, just to keep weighing those pros and cons in your mind.
I like the reference that you made with the clout and the area goes by the way. That was awesome.
It's unfortunate.
And then John, is there any bills now in Tallahassee promoting from Florida and so on?
Not at this exact moment because elections are next month. I mean, there's definitely some legislation that is sitting on the shelf right now until elections happen, and then once that happens and we know where the chips fall, I'm fairly certain something will be filed for this coming legislative session. We know we still have some of the same challenges in the Florida House, but you have to have a bill in order to have the discussions. And so there is a big difference between having a bill and having a chance to get it passed. We don't know where that lands quite yet until elections play out, but absolutely there's legislation that is sitting ready to go.
Was there a bill proposed last year?
Yeah, we had, again, this is part of the frustrating thing, is we had a pair of bills, one in the House, one in the Senate. Our pair of bills had more co-sponsors than just about any other pair of bills in Tallahassee last session. And we got some movement in the Senate. We just didn't get anywhere in the House because the Speaker of the House at the time wasn't interested. And so the House is very top-down. So, I mean, of the 160 legislators last session, if our bills would have gotten to the floor, we had more than 125 yes votes. And we know it because of the work that we and people like Ray and a lot of other members do in order to get the answers that we need from legislators. But if we can't get through some of the brick walls at the top, it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. All right, so we'll take one more question over here, and then please, the other ones, just hold it to the end. Yes, ma'am.
Naomi Halford. I'm an actress, producer, writer, wife. As an actress who has an agent and also does dabble in those Facebook groups, what are some good ways that you would recommend to advocate for yourself for unpaid work? When it comes to safety, intimacy, your name even, what are some ways that you can present yourself in a good way that's professional, since you can't lean on your agent for that, but not makes you look like this is mine,
Right, having a soapbox option. Oh my gosh, what a huge question. What a great question. And again, I think it's going to come down to individual project by project, kind of feeling it out. You're always, first, okay, large overall thought for me is if a project is up on Facebook, I'm already going to view it with, I'm expecting some sort of yellow flag or red flag here. As an actor. If that is the primary place where casting is being offered is on Facebook, then another way of saying that is, if I find a project on Actors Access, I'm much more likely to already trust it. That someone went through the right processes of putting this up, of filling out all this information, of putting no pay, of putting in the shoot dates, of putting in, right, all that stuff. Just knowing that a person had enough base knowledge to go through and to create an Actors Access submission or casting, then already I'm like, cool, great, I trust this. And then if anything pops up, then I feel more readily available to ask certain questions if I need any clarification. Whereas a lot of things we see on Facebook are like, hey, I'm looking for an actor, 18 to 65, must be okay with partial nudity, and we film. And you're like, we film what? Where do we film? When do we film? What are we doing? How much am I getting paid? What is going on here? Right? That's immediately, obviously that's when you just go, keep scrolling. Don't even ask those questions, right? Just move on. But so yeah, you're right. I mean, one of the reasons for having an agent is to be able to have a middle person who can be the bad guy. You know, if you have those harder questions where you show up on set and you can still remain the talent, you can keep that collaborative spirit, knowing that when you show up on set, they had to ask someone else all those tough questions. But at the end of the day, I say ask whatever questions you need to ask. And if that filmmaker views those questions as combative, then that's not the person that you were looking to work with anyway.
That's a great point.
Yeah. I think that's, okay, good.
All right, thank you very much, Jordan. And last but not least, Miss Jennifer Chirakis.
Hi. Thank you. How are you today? Thank you for coming. I'm really grateful to be here. This has been amazing, and if I wasn't on the panel, I would like to be in the audience. I'm a note freak. Got tons of cards of notes from everybody up here. Okay, so vulnerability and emotional access and its importance for film is my topic, but there's so much that Jordan has said that I want to piggyback on, and like, yeah. So my brain, let's see how my brain works right now. Because I'd like to kind of tie some of it together. This is how I take notes. If we're looking to get more film in Florida, which is what we're all working for, correct? Mm-hmm. As we've heard up here. And oh gosh, I had 2 or 3 thoughts going through at the same time, and like they're fighting to come out, and I lost them all.
Yep.
If we're fighting for that and we want to work, you got to train. You can work on sets and learn on sets, just like Jordan said. Absolutely, you're going to learn something no matter how many years you've been working or training. There's always something new to learn. So first off, you got to be. How do you do it? You stay honest, open, and willing. Stay teachable. Teachable is vital. Meryl Streep works with her coach for her scripts. That's one of the variables of why she's so brilliant. Amy Adams works with a coach. Bradley Cooper, you know what I mean? Like, the greats don't stop training or learning. And so it always boggles my mind when newcomers think, oh, I don't need a class. I worked on this and I worked on that. And I don't want to go too far on that tangent because I will. But you guys, listen, do it for you. Do it for the longevity of your career. I wish you a very long, slow, wonderful, successful career. But if you don't train, there's no longevity in it because there are people out there who are training, who are fighting for it. And you might be in Florida right now and you might be up against the Atlanta and the LA and the New York people. I'm sorry, so because you are, you need to train. Because not all of them are, I've lived in all of these places, not all of them are training, but those who are fighting for it. And you're up against the big dogs. So don't think you're not. So train to win. Why would you not? If this is your love and this is your dream and this is your vision for your life and you want it, go for it. But be smart. Be an active participant in the business side of your business. And I just want to create, I just want to craft, I'm an actor. Yes, but like it was set up here, this is show business. Watch, any of those cool shows, The Hollywood Show or The Offer, that is amazing right now, I'm watching. But it's a business, and the business side, unfortunately, and not to be, sound like a downer, but they don't care about your creative process or your craft. So you got to be an active participant in your business. So do what you can on your side. What can you control, right? What can you control today? You can train. And so prepare, don't rush. Don't rush for the clips. This is your journey. You get to create it. So create it wisely. Create a strategy. Work with someone. Find your tribe. All of those things I agree with wholeheartedly. Just treat it like it's gold, because it is. And another reason to go for the training, because your vulnerability is your gold. Julie Tucker, casting director from New York City, said in an interview / webinar, whenever I was listening to her, someone asked, what do you look for in the auditions? She thought for a very short moment, vulnerability was her answer. You don't have to be cast in this deep, meaty, I don't need to be vulnerable. It's just a quick line. But vulnerability, everyone I've met, and I've had it myself over the decades, it's like the V word. It's such a bad word. Oh. When we do word repetition exercises in my classes, vulnerability comes up, and the overall things I hear is it makes me feel weak. Vulnerability scares me. Those are the responses that come up from the process and because my goal is to get you to the truth of your truth, not your mask truth. We all have a mask truth. I have a psych background as well, so I don't have to know you. I already know you have masks, we all have masks. It's part of our human condition. That's the way it goes. My goal is to get you behind your mask, underneath your mask, to what I call the mask truth, the truth of your truth. We're looking for your most truthful, authentic responses to things. Why would you want that? Because you want to bring the truest, authentic version of that character and their story to life. Why? Because that's your job. It's not about you. You're a storyteller. You get to tell stories. You get to live someone else's life for a minute, for 3 months, however long it may last. So physical and vocal work is common amongst actors. Well, I have discovered also it's not very common amongst some actors. So look, I developed something I call the craft tool approach. And it's largely based on what I consider the main 3 craft tools, which are your body, your voice, and your feelings. So you may be working on your body, you may be working on your voice. If you're not, please start, because it's your job. I don't mean to sound whatever. It's your job. It's part of your job. You wouldn't go to wherever you got to go to your job without your briefcase and your papers and your pens and your whatever you need. This is part of your job. You're walking everything. You're walking billboard, you're walking products, you're everything. But the emotional life, I was very blessed to have a mentor who, today's 4 days ago was the 2-year anniversary of his passing. But he didn't just change my acting, he changed my life. And he used to say, if you want to work on your acting, work on you. And I say, to add on to that, if you want to change something in your acting, what do you need to change in your daily life? I have a whole bunch of stuff I want to say, and that I could go on, like you said, do I have an hour? Because I want to talk for a while. Actor self-care tools. First off, you got to have some kind of something, a routine. I call them actor self-care tools. There's very specific ones. I'm not going to get into that now. If you want to know, you just reach out, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. But you got to take care of you, because if you're serious about this and you're going to want to go the distance, you're going to have to get real with yourself. You're going to have to be willing to call yourself on your own BS, and you already know what it is. Everyone take a breath. Drop your breath in your belly. Let's get out of the head. We gotta get in the body. Because in your body, your feelings are there. Just breathe into your body. Everything you need is already inside of you. You can't buy it on Amazon. You can't go to Walmart. You can't have it delivered from Instacart either. Just breathe and keep going internally and do the inner work. Because we want to see you on the screen. Right? Let us connect with you. Think of all your favorites, right? Okay, I'm going to class up the 1%. 1%, right? I believe that 1% could be a much larger percentage. I believe that most actors are too afraid to get vulnerable, so they phone it in and they indicate. Because dealing with your feelings is messy. Feelings are not intellectual. You can know about your feelings and think about them all day long, but are you dealing with the ones you don't like? Are you dealing with the ones you're not used to expressing? Are you practicing expressing the ones that you were told to stuff when you were little? We all are inadvertently taught to shut things off. Don't you get mad at your dad. I'll give you something to cry about. Don't make me pull this car over. Right? Why does almost everybody know this? Because we were all taught to inadvertently shut down. We got to keep everyone around us happy. It comes from childhood. So I'm not going to, I'm not licensed yet, so I'm not going to do a therapy session with you right now, but I know a thing or two about it. So my point is, what are you doing to get to the truth of your truth, to really fulfill what your dream is, to get considered for the larger roles? Start here, do everything. Yes, say yes with caution. Prepare, don't rush. There was another note about that. Yeah, find your safe places. Check around where you want to go. I hear some actors like, oh yeah, I study with everybody. I think there's a great value to that. But if you don't find a home base to settle in, you're never going to be comfortable enough to get vulnerable. That's why in 12-step world they have you find a home meeting, because you got to have somewhere with your tribe that you can open up and get real and share your right? So the director can't pull something out of you that you're not practicing learning how to open, right? Again, we're talking about feelings, emotional life, instinctual stuff. This isn't math class. This is acting. So directors, how are you getting, I don't know how the directors, bring me in and I'll show you some classes. I don't know, with the kids, that were your teachers, I don't know.
Directors.
Yeah, yeah.
Directors.
Yeah.
Jump into some acting classes.
Oh my God, yeah.
If you're giving your actors technical feedback all the time, I get it. Like, a lot of directors in this room probably started off as a director of photography, or probably started off as a cinematographer, probably started off as a still photographer. And so you have the visual in your mind, you know the larger picture, you know the melody of what you want. Finding, and we're tasked with translating those tools, that when the technical stuff comes at the actor of like, hey, go faster in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Our job is to be able to teach the actors to be able to go, oh, okay, good. When you say go faster, I immediately have 10 things in my mind that allow me to go, I know why I'm going to do this.
Yeah, that you practiced using and utilizing because you learned them through training.
Yeah.
And where are you going to get that?
Yeah. But that's the thing. Yeah, sorry.
No. I love that. Yeah.
Work if you want that as well with the actors. Jump into some classes and start to use that language as well, because oh my gosh, your art will just evolve.
Yeah, that's beautiful advice right there.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, from as a screenwriter and director, there's nothing more beautiful to me than to write a character and watch the actors bring that character to life.
Yeah.
They add something
and you
else.
got to be able to tap in. I guess kind of to wrap it up, like, okay, so if I had the board and if I had been able to expound on my idea of PowerPoint like you did, I thought about it, I'm like, but I wasn't
say it, I'll act it out for you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, well, so we have belief systems, we have thoughts, we have feelings, we have behavior. It's really just kind of basic psych stuff, right? Whatever you believe is going to create your thoughts about whatever that thing is, right? And it's going to generate feelings about it when something comes up. And it's going to end up manifesting into whatever your behavior. So the example I like to give, and it's a very, very hot topic, and this is not something we're going to sit here and talk about. It's not open for discussion. It's just as an example, but it's something I believe everybody can identify with. So the hot topic of abortion. So everyone has belief systems, whether they're cultural, religious, etc. You got a belief about it, which creates your thinking. Well, I don't think that's right, or I think this way, blah, 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 blah. And of course, as we have seen plenty in the media and on Facebook or wherever you get your news, everyone's got feelings about it. And then look at the behavior that's created from it. So your job is to get to know you first. That's why I do the character and you development. It's about you, get to know you. How do you function? How do you function? The more you know you, the better you can bring that character to life. And then your job is to create and explore, or just explore the inner life of that character, right? To find out how do they think? How do they believe? What's their backstory? Where did they grow up? Etc. You know, Viola Davis was saying that Meryl Streep, when they did Doubt, Meryl asked her, so is your dad union? Do you have a union job? Get specific. Specificity is vital in your work. General is general. No one's going to watch General for too long. You might book a thing or two, but how far are you going to go? You know? How deep are you willing to go? How honest are you willing to get with yourself? How bad do you really want it? But anyway, your thoughts, and then of course the feelings. You're going to start discovering the emotional life that's already inside of you. If you just get out of the way and not make it about you, and let I feel like we're conduits for the creative source to come through us and let the characters live. Invite them in to live, but you got to get clear with your emotional life so your emotional life can be free. Because the vulnerability is important. It is the goals, and it's what. Think right now. Take a breath. Get out of your heads. Head's a dangerous neighborhood. Don't stay in there. Your favorite actors. Which are the ones that move you? Why do you watch that same movie over and over when you're depressed because you want a good cry? Because they're making you feel something. And when you really feel it, you feel that deep resonation. They're not phoning it in. They're not indicating. They're living it truthfully from moment to moment. They decided to get their ego out of the way and surrender to the truth of whatever that truth is of themselves, and for that character to live through them. And that's why we love them. And that's why we cry or yell at the TV, whatever it is you do, or in the theater. Well, yelling in the theater. Is it just me? No, I'm just kidding. I don't do that in the theater. But y'all hear what I'm saying? Yeah. Take a breath. Whenever you feel and you're in your head, just take a breath, breathe into your belly. You're going to start feeling some feelings. Get a journal out and start writing about it. How's that sound? Good. I'm going to wrap there. Thank you.
Great information. I would add on to that, get comfortable with therapy also, because once you do,
you're going to be stirring up some stuff. That's what life is messy. Feelings get messy. If everything is okay and you're always feeling comfortable, you're not doing the work. You're not doing the work. Yeah. It's going to feel weird. You'll get to a point where it's like, it is comfortable letting it out. But there's going to be some bumpy roads, and that's okay. Because you're growing. You're healing yourself through arts.
And you may need
therapy. And you're helping others heal through watching you on screen. You get to be the conduit for them to feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start our questions. Milda in the back. Got that hand up quick.
Thank you so much for that. It was amazing.
Thank you.
I completely understand. Waking up late with Jason, I completely understand everything you guys were saying, that you have to really dig deep and really get into the nitty-gritty and work behind the scenes. As an actress, I started working behind the scenes and getting really deep in everybody's set. If anybody knows me, I get in the behind the scenes, and that's how I learned how to act and how to be in there and be authentic. And I really appreciate Jason for being on his set on Waking Up White. And there, I learned how to be from a PA to a script supervisor. Come here. And they put me to be a script supervisor. From there, I started learning. And Full Sails got me, and then I said, Mom, let's go to an audition. Let's practice for another audition. And they put me in, and that's how I got that vulnerability, like you said, and I got into it in my head. And quick testimony for that, what you said, I got into the role, and I didn't know how I was new as an actress, but I didn't know. Everybody said, oh, when we're doing a table read, everybody said something about who they studied under. Somebody said something that sounded like stroganoff. I don't know what it was. I thought it was like something like beef or stroganoff, and somebody said something about Meisner or something like that. And who did you study under? And I said, YouTube. And that was it. But I really felt what you said, that you have to be vulnerable. You have to really let yourself in to the role. And as an actress, and now in a short amount of time, I was able to grow. And like Jordan said, you have to really put yourself out there in regards to casting. And I didn't know that we can use our short films to be used for casting. And that was brilliant because I didn't know we can do that. And now here I am being asked to produce a feature film for next year. And so, thank you so much. So, I mean, because of all these opportunities that I've gotten with the Orlando independent filmmakers and Lenny and Sevilla, that opened the doors, and growing with them have been a privilege and an honor. And so from a short amount of time, in 5 years, here I am now being asked to produce a feature film, and this is amazing. So I really wanted to open and say, thank you so much for all this knowledge, because I've been writing like you have no business here. I mean, I've been copying everything down. So my question is, for SAG actors, I know I'm going to be an independent film that we're going to be doing, but we're trying to introduce SAG actors into our film. How do we have that balance? Because we are going to be calling in SAG actors.
And the balance of what?
For non-union, union, stuff like that. This is going to be new to us. So it's very different. So I'm going to be calling Brooke. You're going to hear from me a lot this year. So we're in pre-production right now. We're going to call. I'm going to be calling a lot and have a lot of questions. So I'm going to have all these questions about SAG actors that are going to be coming in. So I have those questions. How do we introduce?
I'm just going to say something super quick, and Brooke and Jordan, whoever else wants to jump in with this, obviously. But first off, you're going to learn as you go, and the people at the SAG-AFTRA offices are fantastic, and I have a very specific list of questions and know what I'm calling for whenever I need to chat with them, and I ask my questions, and I usually get them answered the way that helps me out. And I think, like anything, everything depends on per production. It depends, especially now, since there's 10 million new tiers of SAG-AFTRA productions. It's like, well, am I tier 1? You don't know, and even under each tier, everything depends on the contract per production under each individual tier. I had to do so much last September for a film I got cast in Atlanta. Anyway, the research, it was like, so have your questions, call your people who have experience in those areas. Just don't be afraid to reach out for help is what I would say. But in my experience in the past also, Jordan, is this still correct? I'm sure it's still, each production has to have X amount of non-union actors on their roster. Or am I thinking of just the bigger productions? I know it was like that in New York, in LA. That depends on the size of the production.
Yeah, I actually don't know that. I'm fairly confident that if you're SAG-AFTRA, everyone. Well,
no, because you can be non-union.
It's a right to work state, but I don't think if you're
in New York too, because I did it there.
But if you work with someone who's SAG, then you become SAG eligible, right?
Well, that's a whole other. Yeah.
Here's the thing: in the Southeast, SAG eligible is not a thing as actors because these are all right to work states. Florida, Atlanta, Louisiana, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Arizona, they're all right to work states, which means that legally, and this is, on one side of this, I'm like, every production, like, I would love it. This is, y'all, please take this with a grain of salt. Opinion, actor, whatever. I would love it if OIF was like, oh, we can't really do this anymore because every production should be SAG-AFTRA. Like, that would be really awesome, right? If but that comes down to a whole. There's so much money there. There's so much paperwork. There's so much infrastructure, right? Everybody's like, yeah, sure.
I just wanted to say, as far as all the tiers and everything, goes by budget with SAG.
Yeah.
So they list all that on their website.
Yeah, it is by budget, but even each production within that budget realm depends on the size, right? Because how many non-union actors they'll need to, because non-union actors can work on.
There are contracts in which you can be SAG-AFTRA but not have to pay your actors.
Right.
Which is lovely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And like, I would do that.
On their website, all that.
Yeah. But for the actors in the group, I don't know, this is, first, yes, if you're going into this as a producer, start now reaching out to Miami Local, because if you have these questions, everyone's going to be coming to you for answers, right? So like,
and the website has
uphill battle for you.
You gotta, really scour around for what you're looking for, but it's loaded with so much information to get you started also.
Yeah.
Good question, Doug. Look, you stirred up all this,
Is that helpful?
this stuff here. All right, another question. No other questions out there? The gentleman down here in the front.
Chris, we got one down here.
Chris.
There's so many things that I love about today, but the one thing I love about this panel in particular is the intersection between for-profit, not-for-profit, and government. That's where the needle gets moved. So I'm curious, John, a question. Since you're over the state, are you seeing like a year-over-year increase in revenue related to this intersection for the entire state?
Revenue, no. Activity, yes. And I think that's just a result of some of the smaller budgets in Florida these days for our industry. We have a number of state or a number of local film commissions that are members of our organization that are breaking records through the roof in amount of permitted days. And that ultimately is kind of how they measure how busy their area is. When they look at the money generated from those permits, it's a lot less than it used to be, because we are not getting $20 and $30 million feature films and television series and those type of things. But in terms of the volume of activity, it's through the roof in Florida these days. Yeah.
Would you say some of this is as a result of the pandemic?
No. I think it's just a result of Florida being a hotbed of educational institutions in our industry, independent films, movie of the week type things, commercials. Commercials are booming. And so there's when we talk about a project could be a one-day commercial, or it could be a 4-month television series. There's still one project. So from a number of project standpoint, it's been pretty significant in the last couple of years, ramping up from 18, 19 before the pandemic. But there's still not as much money generated from those projects because we don't have the big fish.
Yeah, you're right on about the commercials. I tell my students all the time, learn the commercial business so that you can eat while you produce your independent films.
Yeah, commercials have always been and will always be the bread and butter in Florida, because they don't rely on incentives. Nobody cares about the incentives. They're looking for locations, they're looking for weather, those type of things, and that will always be Florida's biggest strong point.
Yeah. Nelda again in the back.
With agencies, you mentioned agencies. Now there's a debate in regards to having agents outside of Florida is it recommended, and how many? Some people have one agent, some people have two. I know some people have 3 or 4. What do you recommend for actors?
You're asking as an actor?
As an actor, because I'm also an actress, but I don't have an agent. I have one agent for maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks.
I find it varies per individual needs.
Huh?
It varies per individual needs.
So you can have more than one agent.
Yeah, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. That depends on where you are in your path.
Okay.
And that depends on, if you trained and prepped. I mean, if you're going for Atlanta, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It depends on where you're going. It depends on, the danger with having too many agents is that you're going to be sent out on the same projects by different agents, and who gets you first? You know what I mean? And I think during COVID, I think some of the agents got even a little bit more particular in paring. Well, actually, there's 2 of them I know that did for sure pare down their rosters and are very particular about not bringing anybody on who's got another agent.
Exactly.
Now, so things have changed as well. So again, I think it just depends on the individual. I mean, if you have someone, I'll use Jordan and I as an example. I mean, we've got stuff under our belt, so we're gonna go to Atlanta or LA or New York and make some connections. But if you're just starting out and you haven't done a whole lot of stuff, they're not gonna look at you, and it's just the way it is. They need somebody who's got something under their belt. So it really just depends. I mean, do you have one that you love for commercial and you use them, and you have somebody else for film and TV?
Okay.
Again, it's individual. Start somewhere, but have one.
Okay.
I mean, have one. Be prepared to interview with them, and
I would look at the strategy of this all. First, I agree with everything Jen said about the agents, but look at the strategy of markets and how those agents are serving you in each of those markets. If you have an agent in Texas or in Arizona in the Southwest who is going to be submitting you for projects there, that are going to be of no conflict to your Florida agent. If your Florida agent is only submitting you commercially and only going for the Florida commercials, then there's going to be no conflict with an Atlanta commercial agent. And so, and also if you're, but also looking at your goals of, I'm doing commercial work in order to pad the bank account. So for the next 6 months, I know that I don't have to be, wondering if I'm going to be able to pay my rent. Then that's why you're doing commercials. But if you know that you're doing film and TV, then you're going to want to find an agent here in Central Florida who has those connections in Atlanta, because as we've pointed out time and time again, most of the legit film and TV projects, at least the higher budget ones, one of the last ones we had was The Right Stuff, and they just moved out to California to continue filming. Before that, we had Bloodline, which was not kicked out. They elected to end the show rather than film in another state because they just couldn't find the location here, but Florida wouldn't put up any more incentives for them. So Florida, if you're going to get that film and TV work, it's more than likely going to be outside of Florida, which means you need to find an agent here that has those connections up in Atlanta, or find an agent in Atlanta, and it's probably going to be a smaller agent, somebody who is in the Atlanta market but is willing to work with someone outside of the Atlanta market because they're small, because they're eager, because they want to get some talent on their roster. But if you tried to submit to a larger agency in Atlanta right now, I agree they probably are not going to consider you until your actor's access and your resume and your footage and everything is just at a level in which you could enter that elevated market at a competitive, already as a competitor, right? So you could become a bigger fish in a small pond here, and then use that trajectory in order to enter the larger market.
And build that portfolio.
Very well put. I love that.
All right, one final question, and then we're gonna start closing remarks from the panelists, and then bring our executive director up. Yeah, this young lady right here.
Oh,
Chris.
My question is mostly for John, but also I did mark down, say, the date, March 21st, I'm going on a road trip with Terry. But Can you explain more kind of this, like if you could describe the ideal kind of story, like when you say the story, and I'm a big believer in story is really what always sells people. So what would be that perfect story that would help you, support you to get money for everyone, you know, just to really move people across the aisle or whatever, to really convey that
the stories that matter to legislators when we're talking to them is to get them to understand why they should care. And so as challenging, well, the best story that I ever heard was one of our members who met with a legislator and said, my husband leaves me for 4 months at a time to take care of the kids because he's got to be in Atlanta because that's where the job is. I'm a single mom 8 months out of the year because he can't work at home. It was heartbreaking to hear her describe how difficult it is to explain their kids that they might see dad next weekend, it might be next month, they're not really sure when he can come home. So it's the real stories of challenges that we have as an industry here that resonate with the legislators. You know, it's things like that. It's, you know, the neighbor that moved away. You know, it's the, I used to make $85,000 a year in this industry. Now I make 45 and have to work part-time on the weekends because I can't make the same amount of money because there's not enough work. I can tell them dollars that we lose, I can tell them projects that we lose, I can tell them jobs. Those are all abstract. The real impact is what matters more. Like, I can give them the foundation, but the individuals have to hammer it home because that's what they remember. I mean, there's a certain point. I mean, there's a certain point when I'm Charlie Brown's teacher. I mean, older people will know what that reference is. Yeah, I'm just wah 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 wah. Because, but I mean, I still get, it still has impact. But what really kind of hits them is when they can hear a story about a real individual that lives in their district that is struggling. Because despite what most people think, most legislators are really good people. They really are. I mean, forgetting about the political side of it, they care about people and they're trying to do the right thing. We may not agree with what the quote-unquote right thing is, but they do care about their constituents and they want to help. They just, a lot of times, they don't know what help means until we tell them, this is what we need. This is what I, as a constituent, need you to do in Tallahassee. And that's where we, quite frankly, we stink as an industry. We don't have enough people engaged in the process. There's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking on Facebook. There's plenty of hate emails and phone calls that I received the day after legislative session ends because we didn't get a bill passed. But those people are nowhere to be found in August, September, October, November, December, when all of these meetings and all of these emails could be sent. Those people are just spouting off on Facebook once we come into legislative session. And that's where our industry needs to do better.
That's great. All right, now we'll start with our closing remarks here. Maybe about a quick minute on closing remarks from each of you. Okay. Terry?
Sure, I'll respond to that last question, that legislators are like the process that an actor needs, facts and emotions. So we do need to let their mind know that this is a business and our legislators like economy and it happened. So once we've got some facts in our minds, but then their emotions need to be engaged to change their behaviors. So that's where the personal stories come. And like my story with educators in the arts is that my daughter resisted learning to read until it was she was asked to draw what the story was that she was reading. And then she wanted to read the story so she could draw. So the arts were important. And so that's an emotional connection that allows people to go, oh, So it's not just, whatever. So, like the beliefs, thoughts, emotions, behaviors.
Great, thank you, Tim.
Okay, sorry, I'm back. Last thought, closing remarks for me. I'm just hearing this. There's this phrase that was introduced to me a couple weeks ago by one of my actors, and I hear it rippling through all of these different conversations today. And so, just the main thing I want to leave you with is that in this industry, there are things that are measurable and there are things that are immeasurable, and it's so important for us to acknowledge that both exist and that both are 100% true, such as, yeah, we can take facts and statistics and numbers and people to folks, but what is really capturing them is that immeasurable quality. Yes, I can give technical feedback to an actor on set, but where they're really going to add value is in that immeasurable of working in the abstract, giving them some things to mull through and giving them impossible challenges and seeing how they tackle that in front of camera. Being an actor, and like you can't learn vulnerability. That's not something that we can teach. It's something that must be experienced and then acknowledged, but you can't teach it, and it can't be expected. And so, as a writer, being able to say, like, some of the writers in the room right now might be hopefully not too mad at me, but like whenever I see any writing in a script that says so and so laughs, so and so starts sobbing, so and so whatever rolls their eyes, I'm like, y'all ignore that. That was a clue. That was a clue by the writer, right? They're giving us a clue into that is the measurable clue that they have put down on paper in order to allow the story to rise off the page. But ultimately, what they're describing is this immeasurable.
No parentheticals.
They're describing this immeasurable quality where they're saying this person just had this whole experience. But anyway, the measurable versus immeasurable. Keep taking that with you. We want the world to see this immeasurable thing that we've created that is art, that is creative, that is the mirror up to society, and yet many of you in the room are tasked with being able to scaffold and build that structure that allows for that immeasurable to come out of that. And I don't envy you for that. That's a lot of work. And these folks up here are going to help you with that. So, measurable versus immeasurable.
Thank you, George. Any other final comments?
Yeah, I'll jump in. We've talked a lot about incentive stuff, and that isn't always fun. Here's the last thing I will say is that the state's doing really well with commercials, independent films, music videos, movies of the week. We need to keep doing those because that's our audience right now. Those are the things that we can be really, really successful. Let's be the best that we can be at that. The topic of intimacy coordinator came up, so I just want to reiterate, we just did that interview 2 days ago, actually. So next week it'll be up on our social media pages and on our YouTube channel. It's a whole hour with an intimacy coordinator. If you don't know what it is, it was a fascinating conversation. And then I take a lot of pride in this. I've been doing this. I've been in this role for more than 6 years, and I didn't know this necessarily going into today, but Orlando Film Commission, Global Peace Film Festival, Love Your Shorts, Orlando International Film Festival, Jen Vargas at Film Slam, Ray and Mike are here, Scott Goldberg's here, View was mentioned, UCF, Full Sail, SAG-AFTRA. There's no coincidence that those topics were all brought up, and they're all Film Florida members. So if you're looking for a way to get engaged and get involved and figure out how can I help, I'm not just doing it because it's my job. Join the organization. Individual memberships are cheap. Student memberships are even cheaper. Corporate memberships are not so bad. And we have a lot of levels. I mean, there's a lot of levels. If you want a $10,000 corporate membership, we'll take it. But we have all the way down to $250 a month or a year. And I've never, in my 6 years, I've never had a member say to me, I'm not getting anything out of my membership. It's not worth it. Unless that person wasn't willing to put in an hour a month of engagement. So just leave it at that.
Thank you, John. We have about 2 minutes left. Terry, did you want to jump in?
Yes, we've talked a lot today about the logistics, the technical, and I want to say, do this because we can make our world a better world. have a passion for what you're doing in a way that's not just about yourself, but it's about our world. We can build a better community. Orlando has this platform to be a showcase for the world because we've got so many people intersecting here. So do your film, but do it with a passion for making our world a better place.
Beautiful.
I do. I just encourage you to engage for your craft and for yourself, for your life. Engage, discover and engage in some self-care tools and exercises, and begin or continue your path to the truth of your truth, so you can be vulnerable within this realm and any part of your life, so you can have a fuller, more enjoyable life, no matter where you are in the biz.
Something that I'm hearing across the table here is collaboration. And it's whether you're an actor, whether you're a PA, whether you're a director, whether you're in legislative, whether you're county, whether you're city, whether you're me who does all the things. Collaboration and understanding how to speak everybody's language. Director taking the actor's class to be able to understand, hey, I want you to be more angry. That doesn't help. I want you to internalize, a better director would internalize the pain that character gave you. And I want to see what that looks like on your face. And it's that collaboration with the director and the actor. The actor might bring, like we were talking about, people of color, people that have different backgrounds and lives than you do. Just understanding where they're coming from. I am casting something for my own personal thing right now, and I was working with this actor who brought a completely different idea to what I was doing. That just, oh my gosh, that makes it even better. It's just working together. It's the writing and seeing an actor bring something to life. I did that too. And just seeing that is, you wrote it, it's black and white on a piece of paper, and then someone is doing it. I've actually cried watching it happen. We are doing such a cool thing here. It's just collaboration. And it's just, I want to encourage you in this collaboration. I'm here to help with that collaboration. We're all here to give little nuggets of wisdom and then learn nuggets of wisdom from each other, because we're constantly growing, constantly. If you walk into a room and say, I know everything, you're in the wrong room. You need to go into a room where you think that I need to learn everything else. So, there you go.
Thank you. And with that said, I want to thank John Lux, Jordan, Brooke, Terry, and Jennifer for being on our panel. Thank you so much. And I'd like to bring up our Executive Director for Organization of Independent Filmmakers for final comments.
Thank you again, everyone, and thank you again to the Enzian Theater for hosting this event. I think this is a perfect place for it. I'd like to thank everyone in this beautiful mix of a panel. You guys are great. Thank you so much. Everybody in the audience, do you think that this was a valuable session today?
Extremely.
I'd also like to mention that if you can zoom in with your phone on that QR code, it'll take you to our website. And we offer other programs. One of them is thanks to the Orange County Parks Department. They've allowed us to use the space downtown. The fourth Thursday of every month, except for next month because we're running for Thanksgiving. We have script writing classes there. So what we do is we ask writers to bring in about 10 pages or less of their script. They come in, and then we have actors there, and they do a table read, and they read the characters of the script. This program has been beautiful. It's immensely helpful to the writers. They get to see their script come to life, and it's great for the actors. They get to practice, like a table read. They get to practice the characters. So it's an immeasurable benefit to any writer or any actor. Do you want to say that?
Where does that take place?
It's at the it's an historic building. It's over 100 years old. It was a school, and now it's the Marks Senior Citizen Center down on Mark Street, right downtown, or uptown. It's called. So nice to live there, uptown. Okay. Well, again, thanks everyone, and we hope you do it again.
Thank you, everybody.
Good job.